Hi everybody. Today I am actually videotaping myself. So I'm Deanne Fitzpatrick from Deanne Fitzpatrick Studio, and one of the things I'd like to be able to do is to just show you something that I'm doing just by myself in the middle of my work, like just kind of like a studio note, I guess. And one of the things that we keep getting asked for, that we do have an old video online about, is how to use a Cheticamp frame. So Cheticamp frames come from, the style of the frame comes from the community of Cheticamp in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, that has a long tradition of rug hooking with yarn. Very, very fine yarn is what they use. And what I'm doing now is I'm just threading my needle, because you'll see on here, this is the original frame. This is the very first frame I got when I was hooking. Been hooking for 25 years, so this frame is about 25 years old, because I got it the first year I was hooking. And I remember coming home, and I remember that feeling of, you know how you get that feeling of this is going to change everything? Well, that's how I felt with this frame. It's sort of like, this is going to change everything. And I remember sewing my rug on there the first night, and just the same way that I do now, and sitting underneath the window, and it was dark, and I just really was so contented, that feeling of everything's good. So there's basically a canvas. My canvas is really rough, and it has lots of thread and stuff on it, but basically there's canvas on here, and you're just going to hand sew over and under your edge of your burlap. So I'm using burlap right now because I'm just enjoying working with burlap. I'm not apologizing for it. A lot of people like linen, and I like linen sometimes, but lately I've been liking burlap, so I just go with what I feel like at the time. So if you ever took home ec, you learned a basting stitch. And that's what we're doing. We're basting the burlap to the Cheticamp frame. So, and the basting stitch, I'll be using a Coats extra strong thread. It's actually an upholstery thread. So I'll just show you that really close. It's like this. It's just an upholstery thread. And I'm really liking just being able to talk to just you and not having anyone on camera, not having anyone operate the camera except for me. So I've got a new setup here that I'm going to give it a try. So in this video, all I'm going to do is show you the basic stitch, the over-under stitch of the Cheticamp frame. The Cheticamp has a really interesting history, because years ago, the women of Cheticamp, who are mostly French Acadian, hooked rugs just like you or I. They hooked big, thick, chunky mats. Well, maybe yours are neater and tidier, but mine are nice, big, and chunky, and I like them that way. And that's what they did. They hooked rugs, and they were often patterns of squares, probably a lot like the early mats of Newfoundland and Labrador, which were a lot of geometrics. And what happened was Alexander Graham Bell, the man who invented the telephone, he had a place outside of Bedeck, and his wife and their summer guests would be involved in the communities around Cape Breton and try to do what they could to help the community. So they had this one summer guest, and her name was Lillian Burke. And Lillian Burke was a great entrepreneur, really, I think, in a lot of ways. What she did was she started bringing the rugs of the women from Cheticamp back to New York to sell in the shops of New York, so that the women from Cheticamp could earn some money. And it was really all with the very best of intentions, from everything that I can gather and everything I've read. And she was a good woman. And what happened was the rugs didn't sell. People didn't really want those rag mats for their home. They wanted a more refined look. So if you look up Cheticamp mats now, you'll see a lot of floral designs and a lot of done very fine, and kind of almost looks a bit like Pettipoint, I would say. So what she did was she started gathering yarns from and bringing them back to and having them hand dyed and bringing them back to the women with very specific patterns that they could make, and these were the floral designs. So you'll see now I'm moving to the other side. I'll go back to Lillian Burke in a minute. You'll see I'm moving to the other side, and I'm just going to hook this right here like that, sew this right here like that. Okay, here we go. So Lillian Burke started teaching the women of Cheticamp to hook the rugs that she designed in the colors that she chose. And they were very soft muted palettes in roses and creams and taupes and greens, soft jade greens, very lovely. And then she would bring those, so the women would almost hook a kit. I think Lillian Burke designed them, or she had them designed, but they were very much to the tastes of the day. They were like rugs for parlors, I would say. And she started bringing those back to New York because the other ones didn't sell, and boy, they sold. And it became a real industry. And the women of Cheticamp, since the 20s, I believe, have been hooking like this and hooking on frames very much like this one. And they could hook really fast, and they could produce a lot of rugs. And there were a lot of small businesses in Cheticamp, including a cooperative that they used to, there we go, I gotta tie that off, that they used to support themselves in the winter. And it was cash money in hand for the women who worked in the winter making mats, and they would sell them to tourists in the summer. Some would sell them out of the little boutiques in Cheticamp, and some would send them away to other artisan boutiques across the country. And of course, they eventually became independent of Lillian Burke, and kept, it became an industry on its own, and a viable one, and it probably is one of the things that Acadian community in northern Cape Breton, just before the Highland Park, is really, really well known for. It's really was quite something, and quite beautiful, quite a beautiful story. So there is a book about that was written, and it was published, self-published, I think, in the Cheticamp, and it might still be available if you look around for it. And there is an article about that. There are articles about that. There have been articles about it in Rug Cooking Magazine too. So now I'm just tying this off. You can see I've got it sewn on, and the upholstery thread is really important, okay? The upholstery thread is really important because when you go to tighten up, so here you can see when you go to tighten up these things, we're going to pull on it. So when we pull on this, we want it to stay strong, right? So here's my metal rod. I'm taking that metal rod. There's a hole in here, and I'm putting it in. If I stand up, you might cut off my head, so I'll kind of bend over because I'm doing this myself. I haven't got anyone at the camera. And I'm liking it. It's so nice. It feels so independent. Okay, so I have left enough burlap so that I can roll this along. So you can see it's bundling up here. So I'm going to fold this back because I have this excess burlap because I want to tighten it. I'm going to want to tighten it with my hooks too. So here we go. Going along here. So I think really what this is going to be a little kind of series that I'm going to post sometimes, and sometimes I'm going to do courses like this. I'm going to show you different ways, and I think it's going to give me a lot of independence and with making videos. So what I'm going to do, so you can look forward to some of these videos like this that I'm filming myself. So I'm taking the burlap and I'm flipping it in the hooks here. And then I'm going to go over here, see this, pull this down so you can see there's cup hooks right here, and I'm just pulling it on the cup hooks. And there we go, just like that. And that's it for me for today, and I'm going to go over and turn that on myself. So see you later. Thanks for watching.